Hey, welcome everybody to Dialogues About Death with your host, Chris Miller. Say
Thank
hi.
you. Morning, everybody.
Yay. Thank you so much for deciding to do this show, Chris. I think it's so necessary. I just want to welcome everybody who's watching this today. I'm Mary Barnett. This is Chris Miller. And we have named the show Dialogues About Death because Chris really wants to pull back the curtain about death
Yep,
because we
absolutely.
all have to deal with it, either ourselves or someone we love.
Yeah,
And Chris just wanted to take the mystery out of it. And Chris, let's talk about a little bit about what we're going to be talking about on the show, which we're going to be doing a couple times a month,
sure.
taking questions, answering questions. So tell us a little bit more about what you want to do on the show.
So, for many years, I've been wanting to do a show like this so I can kind of just tell my story and give my perspective and help people here in my community and around. When I'm out in public at public service events and stuff, people are always asking me, "Hey, Chris, what about this in funeral service? Or what about this about cremation and stuff?" And I'm like, you know what? So many people are asking me questions, and I'm like, you know what a better form is to just tell everybody
Yes,
and have it there so that everybody has that information, so then they can make educated decisions when then those times come. And hopefully through this media, if people are on live, they can ask questions. I can try to answer them on the spot, and if we can't answer them, or if I don't have an answer, I'll find the answer and we can bring it back on the next episode.
I love it. And topics that we're going to be talking about is planning, obviously, for our own death. As we said, is inevitable, but death
Yeah,
and taxes. But also, like if you have an unexpected death in your life, a
yeah,
parent or a sibling or a, God forbid, a child, things happen, right?
yes, yep,
Maybe it's somebody who in your life is sick and you know that it's something you're going to have to deal with. Or maybe it's something that is something that you've dealt with and now you have to figure out like how to navigate grief.
that's right.
And you have help for all that, Chris. I mean, you have an amazing team.
I
Um,
do.
so I'm just excited to talk about that. Also, pulling back the curtain on things that maybe people don't want to ask, but they're dying to know. Like dying
Sure.
to know. Sorry for the pun.
Oh, Mary.
Silly.
Yes.
But things like, what's it like to embalm
Sure.
someone or
Really.
what's it like in the crematory, and something that people might not know is that you have an on-site crematory. You and Rhonda actually came up with the idea to have it on site. Why did you choose to do that?
We, as when I got into this business like 30 years ago, cremation was only about 25-30% of our business. And I knew with the way trends were changing that we needed to bring it on site and we needed to have kind of control over the whole operation. And so when my wife and I decided to take that avenue after my dad had passed away, I said, "What can we do?" And so we looked into it, we researched it, and we were able to make it work here at Corona. We have our crematory right on site, and it has been a true blessing to have it as a convenient to our families that we serve every day.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
um, we've done some videos, so people will be starting to hear a little about that, but I think that what it hit me, Chris, that
Mhm.
people not really realize is that because you have it on site, it when someone comes into your care, they never leave your care
Yeah.
until the very end when they choose either to be buried in the urn, or if the people decide to take it home, they've never left your care, so they can have that
Yeah.
confidence that are being respectful with the
That is
remains,
correct.
which I think is amazing.
Yeah, and I kind of changed the way people perceive cremation. Cremation and crematories have always been kind of in industrial areas or kind of hidden down a dark alley type of stuff. And I wanted to like retail cremation. I wanted to bring it so it's in the forefront, so there shouldn't be anything to be scared about. And so our crematory is like right down on Main Street, on 6th Street in Corona. It's right next to the funeral home. It's kind of out in public. It's not hidden. We have an open door policy, so when families that we're serving, they want to come and take a look at it, we show our crematory. We try to break down those barriers and those walls so there's nothing to be afraid about.
Right.
And our families really truly appreciate it, and I think that's one reason why I wanted it on site and next to the funeral home. I didn't want it down the street
Yeah.
because I wanted to have that convenience. And again, that peace of mind for families knowing where their loved one is. I think that's been a big difference between us and the other funeral homes in our area.
Right. Speaking
Yeah.
of other funeral homes, that little known fact is that you are the president this year of
Yeah.
the Order of the Golden Rule, which is a association of independent funeral homes, right?
Yeah. It's an international organization for independent funeral homes around the world. And I'm
Wow.
president this year.
So look at this,
Look at
everyone.
that.
He
Look
is
at that
actually on the cover of Independent Magazine, which is the Golden Rule,
magazine.
um, which is awesome. And tell me about the importance of a family-owned independent funeral home versus what?
Uh, Difference between a independent family owned or like a corporate ran funeral home. Really, the biggest difference is with family owned funeral homes, you kind of have just that little more small hometown feel. You also have a little bit more flexibility when it comes to planning and scheduling. You also have the ability to make adjustments on the fly being a family independent funeral home. Sometimes when you're working with corporations, they have levels of that people have to go through to make changes or to get authorizations. And really, I give my staff the authorizations to make those adjustments to accommodate our families because it's hard enough as it is already dealing with the loss of a loved one. And if we can make that transition smoother and easier, that's what we're here to do. And so I give my staff that opportunity to do that, being independent and family owned.
I love that. You can
Yeah.
actually read more about his business on his website, thomasmillermortuary.com. And there's so many resources there. In fact, something that you offer complimentary to your families is a grief counseling,
Yeah.
right? After
Yes.
and people don't really know that. In fact, I was just talking to someone, Chris, who their parent had died a few years ago, and they said, I didn't even know something like that exists. I'm like, oh my gosh, I will hook you up
Yeah.
with Thomas Miller. So,
We have a couple different avenues. We've partnered with a couple other programs where we have grief counseling through our website, and then we
mhm,
also partner with people that are here within our community with some of the local churches. So we have different avenues. So we have an aftercare program that we serve. So we have some staff members going out a week or two after we've helped a family with their funeral services. We do a follow up and we ask them if there's any other needs that they need, and so we'll steer them in those proper directions for grief counseling if that's something that they're ready for and they need.
that's fantastic. We actually have a question from the audience, which is
All
fantastic. Bill
right.
Oak, he said, "What happens when someone passes away here but lives in another country?" Excellent question, Bill.
Nice. We do specialize in a lot of ship outs around the world. We ship out to the Middle East, we ship to the Philippines, we ship to Mexico all the time.
Okay.
And it does take some time. We have to translate documents. We have to work with the other funeral homes and the families in other countries. And so it does take weeks. Sometimes people think it can happen overnight, and it doesn't. We have to work with consulates, we have to work with the counties. There's a lot of things that we need to do to handle all the legal documentations. And
Hmm.
then we need to make the coordinations to make sure it all is received on the other end, too.
Right.
And so we work with the families. We ask the families who they want to work with in the country of origin of where their family member was from. And then we just work it out through the consulate and the family, and we make phone calls back and forth. And it's a beautiful thing that we can help families do that.
That's awesome. And that kind of comes around to like that you have a full service operation that when you're in that place, and I've lost my mom, my dad, like everyone has lost someone in their life.
Yeah,
And when you're in that place of grief, it's hard to make decisions. It's hard to make, and so, I've heard these terrible stories of people being taken advantage of, or
sure.
the funeral service doesn't like do all the work. They're like, well, you have to do this and you have to do this. Thomas Miller, like I was so impressed, Chris, because I've talked to so many people who have been blessed by your service
Yeah,
that you handle everything for them. You get all the documentation, you register for everything, you get all the certificates and all that stuff for people,
yeah,
which is what a blessing in that time of like you're in this surreal space.
absolutely.
Yeah, so
And
that's
and
amazing.
we that's what we do, and that's what we're here for. Some families want to take a little bit of charge, and so when we sit down during a consultation with a family and we are finding out what they're wanting to do, we let them know all the things we can do for them because we want to relieve that burden off of them. But
Right.
there's sometimes a family wants to do their own flowers, or maybe they want to do their own like little programs and things. We'll allow them to do that, but we always want to let them know that we have all the tools and all the resources to relieve that from them because they should just be there with in the time of their loss. They should be there with their family members and their time to grieve and to get through the loss of their loved one. And we should try, as our staff is there, to relieve all of that stuff for them, so it's just seamless.
Yeah. Well, reading your Google reviews, that seems like a universal love fest for your team because
Yes.
you're always saying, wow, in my darkest hour, the team at Thomas Miller Mortuary really came alongside me and held my
Yeah.
hand through the whole process and guided me through it so they could be in the moment
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
not be worrying about all the, all the things.
All the little things.
Yeah. So, we want to make these shows short and sweet because we value
Yes,
people's time. If anyone has a question, if you can make the question during the show, we'll answer it live. And if
absolutely.
you have a question and you in the replay, we'll come back and we'll answer that question at the next show or maybe in a future post. And it's so sweet that we had some people say hi. So Heather said hi earlier. I popped her comment up. That
Hello,
was so nice
Heather.
to join us, which is wonderful. But something that I wanted to talk about since this is your first show, and some
Sure.
people don't know this, but as a little boy, you actually lived in the funeral home, right?
Yeah, I grew up in a funeral home and I lived in a funeral home until I was 6 years old. Uh,
Okay, so I have to ask you, were you like, because there's movies made about this. Were you
yes.
like running in and out of the coffins, playing hide and go seek in coffins and stuff?
No, that wasn't the case. My, I've always my parents always said, there were certain times I had to be really quiet. And
Oh,
also, yeah, because the apartment was attached to the funeral home.
okay.
So there were common walls, and so I really couldn't make a lot of noise.
That
I
must have been
also
hard for you,
It was hard for me. Also,
the
I did
struggle.
growing up, I didn't have a lot of friends. There were not a lot of friends that wanted to ever come and visit the funeral home to play.
No,
So
no.
it was kind of rough growing up. I didn't have a lot of friends like sleepovers, like friends never wanted to come over and do a sleepover. That it wasn't a thing. I had one friend and that had a sleepover, and he was the only friend that would ever come. He still lives here in Corona. He's still here today.
Oh my gosh, do you wanna tell
I
us
do
who
a
it
shout
is?
out. His name is John Carlton, and I
John
remember.
Carlton. He's a
Yeah,
true friend. I
he
love
is.
that.
He's
Yeah,
a
because I
school teacher here in the school district.
oh my gosh, that's
Yeah,
fantastic. Well,
yeah,
that's another thing that you have going for you, like, you've been in this community, obviously, since you were a little boy,
yeah.
and you have longevity and a history with people, so, I think that makes you more trustworthy, which, because the people know where you live, literally.
They do.
And work. So you're part of the community, which is absolutely awesome.
Yeah.
Something that I found out after we started working together is
Mhm.
that being a funeral director wasn't your first choice growing
No.
up, right? Because your dad bought the business in 1969.
Yes.
So you were like, what? Tell me, like, did you think, oh, I don't want to do that, or did you were like, oh, that's interesting, or you didn't even think about getting into it at all,
I never really thought about getting into the funeral business. I grew up in it. It was always part of my life.
right?
But as an occupation, I never really thought that was something I wanted to do. It was
Okay.
just growing up helping out. Uh, at first, when I was a little kid, I wanted to be between a dentist and an architect. Those are my
Oh,
two first occupations that I always wanted to do. I either wanted to be a dentist or an architect. And growing up, I always talked to my dentist, and my dentist said, "No, you don't want to be a dentist. You're in people's mouths all day long. It's really bad." I'm like, "Okay, I won't do that." And then when I was in high school, I said, "Well, I want to be an architect because I love to design, I love to create and stuff." And I said, "Oh,
right.
building and creating and stuff like that would be really cool." So I went to Cal Poly Pomona to check out their architectural program. And I went there, and the dean of the program said, "Oh, this is a terrible thing. It's hard, it's long hours, it's grueling. You're not gonna you'll be up late, you'll never sleep, and it's like, and once you get out, you'll never get a job." And he's like, he totally downplayed it. I'm like, "This is terrible." I go,
And
"What
he
are you
was trying to
talking about?"
get students. He's not.
Exactly.
He's not in a
And,
good job.
but I always had a passion for cooking, and my fantasy job would have been, being a chef or a cook.
Okay.
And so when I got out of I left the dean's program over at Cal Poly at architecture. I look up and it said hotel restaurant management. I'm like,
Oh,
wow, let me go check that out. So that's what I did. I ended up checking out the hotel restaurant program at Cal Poly Pomona. I ended up getting a degree in hotel restaurant management.
oh, wow. Well, talk about long hours.
It was
Those
long
people
hours,
never sleep.
but it was serving people, and that's what I wanted to do. I love serving people. I loved hospitality. I was able to work in restaurants and stuff like that, and so that was pretty cool. And it was long, grueling hours, though. It wasn't. It was restaurant business is not an easy business either.
No.
Um, but I wasn't finding it rewarding after being in it for 9 years, and that's the time that I was called to come back into the funeral business, and something
Oh,
just come back, and so that's what I did.
maybe
So
God
I
was tapping you on the shoulder, like,
he
"Hello,
was
this is how
I
you can help a lot of people."
yep,
I mean, your joy comes from helping people, and you do that every single day.
it is.
So
It is. That's what
I love
makes.
that. By the way, we do have some comments. I think you might have dissed one of your friends.
Uh-oh.
Rob says, "Wait, what? What about me? Was he also a slumber
Rob
party friend?"
Rob was one of my past employees. He was a great guy. He lives in Michigan now.
Oh, and here he is.
Look at
The,
that.
the
I'm
beauty of
touching
the
the world.
interwebs.
Nice.
I love that. And we also,
We'll do a shout
Deanna
out to
says, "Good
Rob.
morning."
Who else?
Deanna,
Deanna.
Dryden,
Good
Covington.
morning.
Wow, that is
That's
so
my
nice.
cousin. Nice. Cousin
She's your
Deanna.
cousin?
Yeah.
That is so cool. And oh, we actually have a question from Kathy.
Okay,
How can a
Kathy, what's up?
family sign paperwork if they live far away? That's a great question. Paperwork, like what kind of paperwork would a family need to do
Yeah,
or
so
sign?
when we have to put together funeral arrangements for families, there's of course the state of California has required documents that we need to sign and have filled out. Um, so it's been a beautiful thing, Even the pandemic was a bad situation, but it actually progressed our industry into um, using things online. So now we use like
Oh,
DocuSign and Adobe Sign. So now we
okay.
can work with families that are a little bit more remote or far away, so then they don't have to drive to us. We can do all digital signatures for families. It has definitely made our jobs a little easier. So families embrace technology. We can work with families via online through email and text messaging and getting all those documents signed, which really helps expedite the process when we have families that are spread out around the country.
That is fantastic. And also another thing that you said the pandemic actually kind of pushed you forward was that you have a very extensive live stream capability. So if someone is in another state or country and can't make it to
Yeah.
the funeral, they can fully experience it. Is that right?
Yeah, we do live webcasting at our locations, and it has we have families from around the world, and we've had live streams as far as like India, China, Japan, Australia. People have logged in to watch live streaming of funerals from around the world, so it's really cool. It's really brought our world together and made it
Yeah.
more intimate.
Yeah, which is really nice because
Yeah,
people need closure, right? Rob
absolutely.
is asked that question as we were asking. So good job, Rob. Thank you. It does. It's really helpful. And um, because people do they need that closure, and then something else that you've been telling me, and again in these shows we're going to leak out little stories in here and here. I'm trying to
Okay.
here and there. I'm trying to encourage people to come back. In fact, the next show is going to be on December 1st,
Yeah,
Friday 9 a.m. So December 1st, so December 1st and the 15th. But you always have these amazing stories of how people have personalized
yeah.
the funerals. And can you just give one that might have touched you recently that it really made a difference, help people really celebrate and honor the
Sure.
legacy of their loved one?
There was one funeral several years ago that I was a part of that this gentleman, when he passed away, he wanted a live New Orleans jazz band. And so we had his funeral at the funeral home.
Uh-huh.
And then afterwards, we were able to drive him to the cemetery. And then after we got him to the cemetery, we took his casket and we put it into a horse-drawn carriage.
Oh,
And
wow.
And then we had about an 8-piece live brass New Orleans jazz band with all their top hats and all their spats and their long coats and everything. And they led a walking procession from the entry of the cemetery all the way up the hill to his gravesite. So it was about maybe three or
Oh,
400 yards. It was one of the most memorable times that I've ever been to a service where the music was playing and the people were walking and you had the horse-drawn carriage. It was really cool. That's one I'll always remember. It
oh,
was a
that is so
very special
cool.
day.
Yeah, and that's a memory for the children, and it's really like
Absolutely.
it kind of bookend his life like a celebration and his legacy. We
Yeah.
actually have one more question that just came in.
Okay.
Heather actually asked if someone plans with the Neptune Society, can that be transferred to another funeral home for cremation? So I'm assuming you means if you've already planned it with the Neptune
Sure.
Society.
Yes. Families that do pre-planning or prepaying for funerals ahead of time with other companies, we can typically, if a person has moved away, like we'll do that and we'll have people transfer their funeral arrangements to another funeral home somewhere, even out of state. So typically those plans are transferable for a dollar amount. It may not be the full dollar amount, but it's whatever you had paid into it is
Okay.
transferable to the funeral home. So
Okay.
typically what we'll do is if a family has moved to this area, like to Corona, and they had a
Okay.
plan somewhere else, they would talk to us and then we can, again, we'll help the family. We'll make the phone calls to the Neptune Society or to any other organization that has a plan, and we'll
Okay.
call and assist that family. Sometimes that company may not want to talk to the funeral home directly, but we'll at least get all the necessary information that the family might have to do a call themselves to
Okay.
release that. And then we'll work with that company directly for that credit. So if the family has a credit of paying from that other plan, they can go ahead and we'll take it into our funeral home.
Okay. And
Yeah,
that kind of ties into the really something that sometimes people don't think about. There is pre-planning, which gives you the opportunity to purchase like funeral insurance, right?
that is correct.
And then you can have that all paid up, it like within 5 years, and
Yeah,
then that amount you are saving the money because if the inflation goes up in 15 years when you pass,
that's right.
your kids aren't burdened with that and you have it all taken care of. What are some of the other benefits of that, Chris?
So some of the benefits of what we call pre-planning, doing a pre-need, it's to lock the price in at today's price. So then you it's not 100% guaranteed. I say it's like 95 to 98% guaranteed because there's what we call cash advances in the sales tax. So the families
Well,
will,
it's guaranteed in the fact the money's there.
the money is there,
But
but
meaning if there's extra things, that's what you're talking about.
that's correct. The extra things sometimes go up in value, such as sales tax. Today it's at 8%, but in the future it could be 10%. So the family would have to pay the difference in that sales tax.
Okay.
Or
Right. Or if
say
flowers go up in cost, there might be if they
that is
wanted, yeah.
correct. So
Right.
it's just the difference in that cost of the cash advance. But the funeral services and the merchandise, such as like a casket or a headstone or an urn, those things would be guaranteed at the funeral home. So the families don't pay the price, the future price of those items.
That's awesome.
Also, the one last thing that it really helps is the person gets to put their wishes down on paper. So it
Yes.
relieves the burdens because families sometimes don't know what mom or dad wanted. They don't know what their wishes are. So usually when we sit down to do those pre-arrangements, families can write all those wishes down. So it really relieves the burden to the children and the rest of the family.
Yes. And the other thing I thought you were going to say
Oh,
is what I think is cool because I'm a little bit of a control freak,
yeah.
I like to know what I want to pay for what I want. And
Yes.
so if I want to have doves or butterflies and I put that into my pre-plan, you as the funeral
Yeah.
director have to go by my wishes, right?
Yep. The importance of that pre-plan too, if it's a funded paid plan, and if you've paid for a certain type of item, your family cannot downgrade, and they also cannot change your disposition. So if you want to be buried and you paid for a burial plan, your family cannot downgrade it and change it to a cremation. So
Okay.
say you spent like $10,000 on a full burial plan, and then your family comes in and goes, "Oh, mom decided the day before she died she wanted to just be cremated." They can't do that. They cannot downgrade it for like a $2,000 cremation and get an $8,000 refund. That's the protection of you doing your own pre-planning is it
Right.
protects you from any changes in the future also.
Right.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. And
It
I
is.
was actually also surprised, and and I know we want to wrap this up because we
Sure.
value people's time, but I was also surprised that it's not as expensive. In my mind's eye, my dad would say like how much my mom's funeral cost,
Sure.
but when I talk to you, it's not as expensive. I mean, there's low cost items. You have the Cremation Society of Southern California, so if
Yep.
people just want the no frills, they just
Yeah.
want to be able to take care of their person respectfully. That is an option as well, right?
We do. We have every level of service to fit everybody's needs, depending if somebody wants a full celebration of life ceremony with all the bells and whistles, or if somebody just wants something very simple and dignified. We have a level of service for that too. So we can fit into everybody's wishes depending on however much they want to spend for their arrangements.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome. That's awesome. Well,
Yeah.
Chris, congratulations on your inaugural Dialogues
Yeah.
About Death show. I think it's awesome that you're pulling back the curtain and
Absolutely.
really talking about something that we all have to deal with, you know, now or later
Yeah.
for ourselves or for our loved ones. And it gives you a sense of empowerment, I think, when you know what's coming and you know you've taken care of it, it takes the weight off your shoulders. And
Yep.
so thank you. So I
Thank
want to tell
you.
everybody who's watching. Oh, it looks like we have one more question. Let's see. Um, oh, Jason Scott came on. Wow, he's
Wow.
got a long one. I might have to read this to you. It
Okay.
says, Chris, having just visited a funeral home in Gardenville, New uh, NV, that's
NB.
Nevada. I think
Yeah.
it's Nevada. With the passing of my brother. Oh, Scott,
Oh,
I'm so
sorry
sorry.
to hear that.
I can tell you your business, based on the time I personally used your business, has so much to offer that was not available there.
Mm. Well, thank you.
Wow,
Thank you.
that's a huge compliment. Thank you so much. And Heather just said, "Thanks for answering all her questions." I love that.
Hey, you're
Yes,
welcome.
that
That's
is
what
the
I'm
whole
here for.
point. Yes, and Jerry Wilson, thank you for. He says,
Wow.
"Great show, Chris. That's
This is
fantastic.
great.
I love it. Very
Nice.
cool." So again, we're
Thank
going to be
you.
coming back on December 1st for more, answer more questions. If anyone has a question for Chris, that it's a burning question,
Yeah,
put it in the comments below and we'll circle back and answer it. Or
absolutely.
come on live with us again on
Yeah.
Friday, December 1st. Chris, is there anything you want to wrap up about this? Oh, I forgot to say
What?
something is available. What is this?
Oh, those are our 2024 calendars. They're available at the funeral home. You can come by anytime and pick them up. Also, this next week, I'm going to be distributing throughout our community at some of our local churches. So if you can't come by the funeral home, stop by one of your churches and you can get one of your 2024 calendars from Thomas Miller Mortuary.
Oh, very awesome. And it's really nice. It's called
It is.
Inspirations, and
Yeah.
it's got beautiful pictures and
Yep.
scriptures in here. And I just, it's so inspiring.
Yes, thank you.
Very nice. So thank you. I love my copy. So make sure you, like I said, stop by the mortuary or the local churches in the next couple weeks. So Chris, right before we end up, oh, we
Yeah.
also Becky said good job. That's awesome.
Okay. Thanks.
Thanks, Becky, for coming. We just want to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving.
Absolutely.
And Chris, let's end the show with a little bit of gratitude. What are you grateful for this or thankful for this Thanksgiving?
Yeah, I'm just grateful to have a wonderful staff that allows me the opportunity to do the things I do here in my community, and I'm grateful for my family, but it's about the community because if it wasn't for my community, I wouldn't have the opportunity to give what I give every day, and I'm so thankful for that. So thank you for entrusting us through the years, and we'll be here for many more years to serve you when that time comes.
I love it.
Yeah.
You just got a message from Leanne. Happy Thanksgiving and thanks for all you
Oh,
did for
thank
her
you,
mom.
Leanne. Oh, thank you.
That is really sweet. It touches my heart so much, Chris, reading all the different testimonies of how
Yeah,
your service has done in this community. So, bravo. I love
thank
it.
you.
Awesome.
Thank you very
All right,
much.
everybody, we will see you back on December 1st for
Great.
more Dialogues About Death with your host, Chris Miller. And
Thanks.
thanks again for joining us today and have a happy Thanksgiving. I'm
Happy
thankful for you
Thanksgiving.
too, Chris.
Bye bye. Thank you.
Have a great day.
Take care.